I want to talk today about human beings as social animals. We are just a profoundly social species. And that's true in a bunch of different senses. So social cognition, that is the business of being able to see, understand, interact with, and think about other people, is just a huge part of what our minds and brains are and our fundamental natures are all about. And you see this in many different ways. So one is that the source of a lot of what we know comes from other people. So if you do a quick mental inventory of everything you know, like jot it down in your head, think about it for a minute, think about all the different kinds of things you know. Now ask yourself, how much of that stuff would you know if you had never spoken to another person? Not very much, right? So an awful lot of the human mind and human knowledge comes from other people. That's one sense in which we're social. Another sense is that the requirement to interact with other people is probably one of the major drivers of the evolution of the human mind and brain. So it's been argued that one of the most cognitively demanding things we do is to interact with other people, because other people are complicated, and to understand them and predict what they're going to do is really demanding. And so that, and yet matters enormously for our survival success. So there's a strong argument to be made that that is one of the primary, if not the primary, force of natural selection shaping the human brain. Another sense in which we're very social beings is that a very large part of the human mind and brain is engaged in social cognition. And you see this in terms of minutes of the day, like what's happening right now. I'm making noises out my mouth. You guys are hearing those noises. The ideas that were in my head that led to the noises are hopefully producing similar ideas in your head. That's the whole point of me standing up here. That's pretty amazing, right? That's very social. That's all about taking ideas here and sticking them in your head, right? And by the way, if I make noises that are just noises and don't produce clear ideas in your head, raise your hand and ask a question, okay? Okay, so we do this a lot of the time, a lot of our waking minutes, and it also occupies a lot of the area of the cortex, right? So these regions shown in color here are all involved in different aspects of social cognition. So it's a big part of what we do all day and a big part of what our brain is organized around. And another important sense in which we're social is that some of the greatest feats of the human intellect are the product of people working together. Like, for example, the field of cognitive neuroscience, right? And it's actually interesting to think about the social nature of humans by comparing us to our closest primate relatives, chimps. So Sarah Blaffer-Hardy, shown here, who's an anthropologist and primatologist, has this entertaining example in which she points out that an everyday occurrence in which you take a couple hundred people and load them onto a plane to fly someplace, they go in an orderly fashion, they sit down right next to each other, touching each other, smelling each other in very close quarters. Like, nobody loves it, but we all tolerate it, we all know how to behave ourselves. Nobody bites anyone else, typically. She says, imagine if you tried doing that with a bunch of chimps. Oh my God, there would be mayhem, right? They would be ripping each other to shreds. So the very ability of humans to occupy the same space and deal with each other nicely is unusual in our primate ancestry. Okay, and the social nature of people is seen in other ways too. It's very early developing. So Felix Warneken at Harvard has been studying the ways in which little kids are spontaneously cooperative to strangers they've never met before. So let me just show you a video of some of his experiments. They're really quite striking. So here's this kid sitting in the corner with his mom, and this is, I believe, Felix himself, who just walks in. The kid is given no instruction. He just figures out what's going on and figures out how to help. This kid doesn't know this experimenter. Okay, so watch what happens.
Oh. Oh. So. So. Einmal hier und einmal. Oh. So. So. Yeah. Oh.
It goes on and on with many demos like this. You can find it on YouTube and watch more. And what it shows is just that something that's extremely unusual in the animal world, which is spontaneous cooperation among non-relatives. So that's another aspect of our social natures. Okay, so how do we manage to navigate the social world? What do we have to be able to do cognitively to be able to do all of this? Well, social interaction involves a whole suite of mental skills, right? So to start, you need to be able to detect other people and recognize them. Once you recognize them, you can tap into your mental Rolodex. That's probably a totally dated metaphor, but anyway, your knowledge of particular individuals and everything about them. So that when you recognize that person, you already have access to a lot of knowledge about that individual. We can perceive other people's actions and know what they're doing and perceive why they're doing it. Okay? We can think about what other people are thinking, about what they know. Right? We can produce and understand language. And we can think about social groups. Like we can perceive people and figure out which ones are social cliques, which people are members of which other cliques, and who's dominant over who has authority. And we think that we academics are above all of that. We don't have dominance hierarchies. Ha! Yes, we do. A friend of mine who studies macaque monkeys says that when she walks into her monkey colony, when she's a professor at a university on the West Coast, when she walks into her monkey colony, she says the monkeys instantly figure out the relative social rank of whatever person is with her, right? So monkeys are very attuned to this, and they see it in human behavior. So we're not immune to this stuff. Okay, so that's just a few of the many things that entail human social cognition. And of course, it starts with detecting and identifying other people. That's like step one in social interaction.